Okay, so today I'm going to be doing a shorter video here on a problem we've seen pop up multiple times. It's been costing clients a lot of revenue, and we've seen some really good results from fixing this issue. And so I'm going to share with you what that issue is, some ways to approach a solution, and then what type of benefits you'll see in terms of conversion throughout the funnel and throughout your lifecycle stages. And so what we're going to be talking about is a situation where companies have their customer journey, they're tracking it in various ways, whether it's using a lifecycle stage property, a leads object, a status fields, combination of those, but they are missing leads that are stuck in specific stages in the customer journey. And so these are idle, and it's for a very specific reason that I will explain here very shortly. But they are not contacting them, they are not moving them throughout their or through their funnels further in the journey, nothing like that. And so it's causing a lot of lost revenue. People are paying for these leads, they're not converting to customers, and so they're just wasting a bunch of money, right? And so with lifecycle stages, and we've talked about this before, but it is the furthest horizontal point that a lead or contact has gotten in the customer journey. It is not meant to be cycled through to the beginning. You're not supposed to reset these. You're supposed to use statuses or the lead object to represent the current state of that lead, and that's able to be cycled back through. But lifecycle stages is the furthest point people get in a customer journey, and that's important because you have a deeper understanding of the depth they've gone with your organization. It's not perfect, but if you're cycling people from SQL back to lead, or back to subscriber, or back to MQL in the lifecycle stages, what happens is that salespeople and marketing automations and everything else you set up that looks at the lifecycle stage ignores the fact that they've gotten further in the journey. And so it makes it difficult to close these people if you are assuming that they're only in the MQL stage and they haven't gotten any further, right? Not many salespeople are going to be looking back in the property history of lifecycle stage and seeing, oh, they actually got to an opportunity before. Now they're reset to an MQL. Let me approach this differently, right? If they're lucky, they will see notes or meetings from the past. But in reality, you want it to be the furthest they've got along because they've gotten along the journey. Because then you're going to be able to cater the conversation and the assets that you're sending them based off of the relationship they have with your brand. And so a lot of people mess that up, but that's not what we're going to go in depth on today. What we're going to be talking about is how these people get stuck and why, and how to resolve that. And so with these life cycle stages, you have people start out often in subscriber, and they go all the way to maybe like a customer. Some people do an evangelist, but just remember, you're not supposed to be disqualifying people out here at the end of the life cycle stages. That's not correct. This should be instead a lead status or something similar, right? Or you should use a lead object for that. That's another conversation. So people are moving through this. Sometimes they'll go through the standard setup, right? You'll have your MQLs, your SQLs, your opportunities, and then your customers. People throw other ones in there. Whatever you do, it'll probably be something similar to that, right? And so what ends up happening is people get stuck because in a lot of organizations, the very front part of the customer journey is where marketing is responsible. The very end portion of the journey is where sales is responsible, and sometimes customer success as well, especially once they're in the customer stage. And so what ends up happening is people go and get to, let's say, the MQL stage, right? And so they'll get right here, and they'll be sitting there, and marketing is measured off of the number of MQLs that they generate, right? And then they'll put them into a funnel or into an automated sequence to try to get them to convert to book a call or to give them additional information so that they can determine whether or not they're an SQL. Some people have an automation between these stages, right? And so some of our clients, we set them up with third-party tools that have data to determine whether or not they're actually an SQL. But what ends up happening is if they don't have that automatic qualification, because marketing only cares about the number of MQLs coming in, once it reaches MQL and they've done their sequence, they just forget about them. They're not looking back at them. They have nothing else after 30 days of drip emails, and it just ends there, right? And so they get lost in the MQL stage. And so we'll see a lot of unconverted leads here, right? So unconverted, non-converted, whatever you want to call it. And then on the back end with SQLs and opportunities, sales is not only interested, a lot of sales teams focus primarily on their deals and how they're moving through the deal pipelines. And while that is okay, usually that means that they're focused only on very specific deals that are either recent or will give them the biggest commission, right? It's just natural behavior. And so what ends up happening is if there is a lead who is qualified and it's a deal that is created, so they're an opportunity, they end up forgetting about them because they just get busy with other opportunities that are bigger, right? And sometimes people have pipeline reviews, and so they catch these eventually. If there's a lot of volume, these fall to the wayside. But those were highly qualified leads who are actually really interested. And so with signals that we've been talking about the whole time, you can identify those people, right? But this is not to talk about an entire signal setup. It's to just get quick wins here with fixing this problem of leads sitting too long in certain stages. And so then with the SQLs, if they're not opportunities yet, they definitely get lost just because if they are disqualified by the sales team, they might not be marked out in the system, so you think they're qualified, and you have bad data quality. So there's just a lot of problems that go on, and people end up sitting too long in SQL, and you don't even know that they're there, right? They were ready to move to the next step, but they didn't get there. And so how we solve this is by setting various time frames. A little timer here. Setting various time frames of maybe something like 60 days in the MQL stage, 7 days in the SQL, shouldn't really be 7 days in the opportunity, but this is usually where the least amount of opportunity is here with this problem. But in MQLs and SQLs, you're going to find a lot of gold in there just because some of the MQLs just need a little bit of a bump or a little bit more relevant of a message to get them to the next stage, right? And you're still building the relationship with the brand so that when they do convert to the next stage, they'll have better conversations with sales and they'll close at higher rates. And so what you want to do with these, and we've seen really good success with this, is let's say they run through all of their stages, they run through all of their automated sequences in the beginning of when they entered the MQL stage, but they've still been sitting there because they haven't taken any other actions. What you're going to want to do is a few things. You can either cycle them back into specific audiences for ads, right? Audiences for ads, and retarget them with a different messaging to try to get them to convert. The other thing that you might want to do is send them different assets, whether it's case studies, newsletters, not spam newsletters, but just, once a month, once a quarter type thing. And just gently nudge those people, keep in contact with them. You never know when things change quarter to quarter in terms of their priorities and where your solution might fit in. And then when it comes to SQLs, you want to get really targeted with this. So this would be the same thing, audiences for ads, but you want hyper-targeted ads around where they're at in their lifecycle stage, right? And then other data points that you've collected about them. So whether it's their industry, whether it's the product they were interested in, you want to retarget here. And then you'll see a higher conversion rate through the rest of the funnel. And then it's the same thing with case studies. You just want hyper targeted, right? You want these as close as possible to that person's entire persona. If you have competitor case studies, like their competitors, if you have people who are in their exact position with the exact same size company in the same industry, then the more targeted those are, the better, right? And then you want to always offer more and more value. So you keep offering value at these stages, and you'll just keep building this relationship and getting people to convert, right? And so the general gist of this whole thing this whole solution to this problem is to make sure that you have these thresholds set and then to do automations or manual reviews. See if there's a reason why they're sitting there too long. If you are letting people sit in MQL or SQL for too long, do you have data points that are missing where they're not actually qualified? Do you need to collect those? Are there additional data points that you could use to help convert them to the next stage? And when you do these two things, if you increase your touch points for people who meet a certain threshold in terms of their idleness, and then if you manually review those people and see what types of opportunities exist from contacts that you haven't been reaching out to, then typically what we see is a 10 to 15% additional closed deals. We see an increase of 10 to 15% in additional closed deals in a quarter. It's that big of a difference. With our clients, especially if this has been a prominent problem, but if you haven't done this ever, you will discover some missed opportunities here that you'll be able to capitalize on. But there's just all this gold sitting there in the CRM. All these people who have sat idle in the MQL and SQL stages, and even the opportunity stage, where you should be reaching out to them again at a certain point because things just fell off for whatever reason. So hopefully this was helpful. Takeaway would be, make sure to go back into your CRM, look at people who have sat in certain stages for a long period of time, see why they're there, see your last touch point, and whether or not it's worth it to reach out again. If you can resurface conversations or encourage them to convert to the next stage, to talk to sales, to close a new deal, whatever it may be, then you'll be able to take advantage of leads that you already paid to get into your CRM in some way, shape, or form, and then you'll be on the road to success. So I'm Dan Saavedra from MergeYourData. This was day 45 of the Signal Analytics sprint that we've been doing on YouTube. So would love it if you go back and watch some other videos, shoot over some questions. My one ask for this video is that you hit the like button on it. Helps us get the word out, helps us share relevant videos to people who could use them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.